how is China's new generation of artificial sun is progressing? And when will this power generation become a reality?
China has built a machine that creates heat hotter than the sun. Deep inside it, scientists are trying to copy the same power that lights the stars. It runs without fire or fuel. It could also change the Earth's energy story. What is it really, and how does it work? Join us as we take a trip to the sun on Earth, the artificial sun. Deep inside a research facility in Hefei, Chinese scientists are working on a machine designed to copy the power of the stars. This device is known as the Experimental Advanced Superconducting Tokamak, or EAST. It is not a power plant yet, but a research reactor built to study nuclear fusion, the same process that gives the sun its energy. And how does the sun work? It operates through fusion. Fusion is the forcing of very light atoms, usually forms of hydrogen, to combine into heavier atoms. When this happens, a huge amount of energy is released. This is not the same as nuclear fission, a process which splits atoms apart. Fusion is considered cleaner because it produces far less long-lived radioactive waste and does not release carbon emissions. To make fusion happen on Earth, scientists must create conditions similar to those inside stars. That means extremely high temperatures and enough pressure to push atoms together. In space, gravity does this job. On Earth, scientists use technology instead. EAST uses a design called a tokamak, which is shaped like a hollow ring. Inside this ring, gas is heated until it becomes plasma, a state of matter where electrons break away from atoms. This plasma cannot touch the walls of the reactor because it is far too hot, so the machine uses powerful magnetic fields to hold and control it. EAST was one of the first devices to rely fully on superconducting magnets, which allow strong magnetic fields to run continuously without losing energy. The purpose of this reactor is not to generate electricity yet. Instead, it is a testing ground. Scientists use it to understand how plasma behaves, how long it can be controlled, and how stable it remains under extreme conditions. The knowledge gathered from EAST helps larger international projects move closer to building working fusion power plants. China is also part of global fusion efforts, including projects like ITER in France, which aims to prove that fusion energy can be produced on a large scale. The name artificial sun is not just for show or cinematic impression. It's basically a goal of recreating the same energy process that powers the sun, but on Earth. The idea is simple, but the science is complex, and every experiment brings researchers closer to understanding how to turn this concept into a reliable energy source. Now that that's done, let's look at the impressive nature of the artificial sun, especially its rivalry with the sun when it comes to heat, hotter than the sun. It's easier to imagine a trip to the sun than a look inside the artificial sun's core. Inside this machine, known as Experimental Advanced Superconducting Tokamak, temperatures rise to levels that are almost impossible to imagine. Scientists have pushed plasma to more than 100 million degrees Celsius, and in some experiments, even higher. In one major breakthrough, temperatures reached about 160 million degrees Celsius. These are carefully controlled conditions where the plasma is studied in detail while it burns at extreme intensity. This is far hotter than the core of the real sun, which is around 15 million degrees Celsius. The comparison sounds surprising at first, but there is a clear reason. The sun is held together by gravity so strong that it squeezes atoms together naturally. That pressure allows fusion to happen at lower temperatures. On Earth, scientists do not have that crushing force, so they must make up for it by pushing temperatures much higher to force atoms to collide and fuse. Reaching these temperatures is not just about turning up the heat. It requires several layers of advanced technology working together at the same time. Powerful microwave systems are used to energize particles inside the plasma, while neutral beam injection sends high-speed atoms crashing into it to transfer energy. These methods raise the temperature step by step until the plasma reaches a state where fusion reactions can begin to occur. At the same time, the plasma must remain suspended in midair. It cannot touch the walls of the reactor because no known material can survive direct contact with such heat. To solve this, strong magnetic fields form an invisible cage around the plasma, holding it in place. This delicate balance between heating and confinement must be maintained every second. Even a small disturbance can cause the plasma to cool or collapse. What's more challenging is that heat inside the plasma is not evenly distributed. Some regions become hotter than others, creating instabilities that can spread quickly. Scientists constantly adjust magnetic fields and energy input to keep the system stable. This level of control requires precise monitoring and rapid response from advanced computer systems. The achievement of such extreme temperatures shows that scientists can create the basic conditions needed for fusion. It also proves that the materials surrounding the plasma, as well as the magnetic systems, can endure repeated exposure to intense energy without immediate failure. This is important because future reactors will need to operate under these conditions for much longer periods. Still, temperature alone does not produce usable energy. Fusion depends on a careful balance between heat, particle density, and time. Even if the plasma reaches very high temperatures, it must remain stable long enough for enough fusion reactions to occur. If it cools too quickly or loses its shape, the process stops before meaningful energy is produced. The experiments carried out in China show that human-made systems can exceed natural temperatures under controlled conditions. While the sun depends on gravity, this reactor depends on engineering precision. Every increase in temperature represents a deeper understanding of how plasma behaves and how fusion can be controlled. The goal is not just to reach extreme temperatures once, but to make those conditions stable, repeatable, and useful for future energy production. Stunning? Don't cover your mouths yet. There still remains the question of durability. Is this technology long-lasting, or is it just a million-dollar gamble and waste of energy? Let's find out. Historic breakthroughs. Creating a condition on Earth, hotter than the sun, is cool and all, but the real test is keeping that heat stable long enough for fusion to continue. In this area, China's artificial sun, the experimental advanced superconducting tokamak, has achieved one of its most important milestones. Scientists managed to sustain plasma for 1,066 seconds, which is more than 17 minutes. This set a world record for maintaining a steady, high-performance plasma state. This may sound like a short time, but in fusion research, it is a major achievement. Plasma is highly unstable. It moves, twists, and can suddenly lose energy. Keeping it steady requires precise control of magnetic fields and constant adjustments during the experiment. The reactor operates in what is known as high confinement mode. In this state, the plasma holds its heat more efficiently, allowing temperatures to remain high. Achieving this mode for a long duration is important because it brings scientists closer to continuous fusion reactions. Earlier experiments lasted only a few seconds or minutes. Over time, researchers improved their systems, gradually extending the duration. The jump to over 17 minutes shows that long-term stability is becoming more realistic. This progress also tests the durability of reactor components. The inner walls and materials must handle intense heat and radiation without breaking down. The longer the plasma lasts, the more stress these materials experience. This helps scientists understand what future reactors will need. Maintaining plasma for longer periods also improves energy efficiency. In a working fusion power plant, the reaction must last long enough to produce more energy than it consumes. While current experiments still use more energy than they generate, extending the duration is a key step towards solving that problem. Each second added to the plasma's lifespan represents years of research and engineering improvements. It reflects better control systems, stronger magnetic fields, and improved understanding of plasma behavior. The record set by China's reactor is not the final goal, but it's a win all the same. The ability to sustain plasma for longer periods brings fusion closer to becoming a continuous and reliable energy source rather than a short-lived experiment. What makes this achievement even more important is how the plasma is kept stable during that time. Inside the reactor, the magnetic field is not fixed. It is constantly adjusted to respond to changes in the plasma's shape and motion. If these movements grow too strong, they can break the confinement and end the reaction. Another problem comes from the edges of the plasma. The outer layer interacts with the reactor's inner surface in a controlled way, releasing excess heat and particles. Managing this boundary is critical. If too much energy escapes, the plasma cools down. If too little escapes, pressure can build and cause instability. Engineers have developed advanced diverter systems that guide this excess heat away safely, allowing the plasma core to remain stable. Fueling the plasma during long experiments is also a complex task. Small amounts of hydrogen fuel must be injected continuously to keep the reaction going. This has to be done without disturbing the delicate balance inside the reactor. Methods such as frozen pellet injection are used, where tiny pieces of fuel are fired into the plasma at high speed, dissolving instantly and feeding the reaction. As the duration increases, new problems begin to appear. Tiny impurities from the reactor walls can enter the plasma and reduce its efficiency. Even small amounts of unwanted particles can cool the plasma or disrupt its behavior. Scientists work to minimize this by using special materials and coatings that resist erosion under extreme conditions. Longer experiments also provide more data than ever before. Sensors placed around the reactor collect information on temperature, pressure, magnetic fields, and particle movement. This data is used to improve computer. Then there's balancing the energy. While the reactor is running, large amounts of power are used to heat and control the plasma. The success of long-duration plasma operation shows that fusion is no longer limited to brief, unstable bursts. It is more stable than before, and who can tell what will happen with time? Each increase in time brings new insights into how to manage heat, control instability, and protect reactor components. These advances contribute to a global effort to build future fusion reactors that can run continuously for hours or even days. The lessons learned from maintaining plasma for over 17 minutes are already shaping the design of next-generation systems. That's not all this new tech has to boast off. Ready for another one? You're about to see it. Breaking the density barrier. For many years, fusion research faced a major limitation known as the density barrier. This limit, often called the Greenwald limit, defines how dense plasma can become before it turns unstable and collapses. China's artificial sun, the East, has recently pushed beyond this boundary. Scientists managed to maintain stable plasma even when its density exceeded previous limits. This breakthrough changes a long-standing assumption in fusion science. Higher density means more particles are packed into the plasma. When more particles are present, the chances of fusion reactions increase. This is important because energy output depends not just on temperature, but also on how many particles are interacting. The challenge is that dense plasma tends to become unstable. It can cool down quickly or escape magnetic confinement. Researchers overcame this by carefully controlling how the plasma interacts with the reactor walls. They also adjusted how energy is delivered into the system during the early stages of the reaction. By managing these factors, scientists found that plasma could remain stable even at higher densities than expected. This suggests that future reactors might operate more efficiently than previously thought. The result is significant because it opens new possibilities for achieving stronger fusion reactions. If plasma can be both hot and dense while remaining stable, the chances of producing useful energy increase. This discovery also supports new theoretical ideas about how plasma behaves. It shows that earlier limits were not absolute, but depended on how the system was controlled. With better technology and understanding, those limits can be pushed further. Breaking the density barrier is not just a single achievement. It represents a shift in how scientists approach fusion design. It allows for new experiments and new reactor concepts that were not considered practical before. What makes the density limit so important is how it connects directly to the core goal of fusion, which is to produce net energy. In fusion science, there is a relationship between temperature, density, and confinement time. These three factors must work together in balance. If one is too low, the reaction weakens. Increasing density is one of the most direct ways to raise the number of collisions between particles, which is where energy is released. For a long time, this path seemed restricted by instability, making it difficult to push reactors toward higher performance. Inside the reactor, as density increases, the plasma begins to behave differently. It becomes more sensitive to small disturbances. Tiny fluctuations can grow into larger waves that ripple through the plasma. These waves can carry energy away or cause parts of the plasma to break apart. This is one of the main reasons the density limit was considered a hard boundary. It was not just a number, but a warning point where control becomes much harder. To go beyond this, scientists had to rethink how they managed the plasma environment. One key improvement came from controlling turbulence inside the plasma. Turbulence acts like a leak, allowing heat and particles to escape. By reducing this effect, the plasma can stay stable even when more particles are added. This involves fine adjustments to magnetic field strength and shape, creating conditions where turbulent motion is reduced. Another important factor is how the plasma is formed at the beginning of the experiment. The early phase determines how stable it will be later. By carefully shaping the initial plasma and controlling how quickly density increases, scientists can avoid sudden instabilities. This gradual approach allows the system to adapt instead of reacting violently to changes. The surface of the plasma also plays a key role. At higher densities, interactions between the plasma edge and the reactor walls become more intense. If not controlled, this can introduce impurities into the plasma, weakening the reaction. Engineers developed improved welding materials and cooling systems that reduce erosion and keep the plasma cleaner. This helps maintain stability even as density rises. The success of exceeding the density barrier also improves confidence in scaling up fusion reactors. Larger machines will need to operate at high densities to produce meaningful amounts of energy. Proving that stability can be maintained under these conditions removes one of the major uncertainties in reactor design. This progress also feeds into international fusion research. Data from these experiments is used to refine models that predict plasma behavior in future reactors. These models are essential for designing systems that can run safely and efficiently without constant trial and error. Another important outcome is the ability to explore new operating regimes. Instead of staying within conservative limits, scientists can now test more advanced configurations. These may lead to better performance, higher efficiency, and more reliable operation over long periods. The breakthrough also highlights how fusion research evolves over time. Limits that once seemed fixed are now being questioned and redefined. As tools improve and knowledge grows, scientists are able to revisit old assumptions and push beyond them. By showing that dense plasma can remain stable, this achievement strengthens the foundation for future fusion systems. It brings researchers closer to conditions where heat, density, and stability can exist together in a controlled and sustained way. Now, we've talked about the sun. What about its world? What does it stand to gain from this? You don't want to miss this. What this means for the future of energy. East is part of a much larger global effort to unlock fusion energy. The goal is to create a power source that is clean, abundant, and reliable. Fusion uses fuels like hydrogen isotopes, which are widely available. When fused, they release large amounts of energy without producing carbon emissions. The process also generates far less long-term radioactive waste compared to traditional nuclear power. Despite the progress, fusion is not yet ready for everyday use. Current reactors, including East, still consume more energy than they produce. This means they are experimental tools rather than power generators. However, each breakthrough brings scientists closer to solving this problem. Improvements in temperature, stability, and density all contribute to making fusion more efficient. These advances are shared across international research programs, helping accelerate progress worldwide. Large-scale projects are already in development. For example, the ITER project aims to demonstrate that fusion can produce more energy than it consumes. It is expected to play a key role in the transition from research to practical application. The timeline for commercial fusion power is still uncertain. Many experts believe it could take several decades before fusion becomes part of everyday energy systems. This is because the technology must be not only effective, but also safe, affordable, and scalable. Even so, the potential impact is significant. Fusion could provide a steady source of energy without the environmental challenges linked to fossil fuels. It could also reduce dependence on limited natural resources. The progress made by China's artificial sun shows that fusion is moving from theory toward reality. Each experiment adds to a growing body of knowledge that may one day lead to a new kind of energy system, powered by the same process that lights the stars. Beyond electricity generation, fusion could reshape how energy is distributed across the world. Because the fuel sources are widely available, many countries could produce their own energy instead of relying heavily on imports. This could improve energy security and reduce the risk of supply disruptions. At the same time, fusion systems are designed with safety in mind. Unlike traditional reactors, they do not rely on chain reactions that can run out of control. If conditions are not maintained, the reaction simply stops. There is also growing interest from private companies working alongside government programs, bringing new investment and faster innovation into the field. These efforts are helping to explore different reactor designs and engineering solutions. While challenges remain, the steady progress suggests that fusion is no longer a distant idea, but a developing technology moving step by step toward practical use. Keep watching for one more important detail on this topic. One big step for China. We've seen humanity achieve remarkable technological wonders across the world, from reusable rockets developed by SpaceX to the vast network of the Shinkansen and the particle discoveries inside Large Hadron Collider, each breakthrough has pushed the limits of what seemed possible. Yet, among these achievements, China's artificial sun stands apart, not just as an invention, but as an attempt to recreate the very power of the stars, placing it among the most ambitious scientific efforts of this century. China's progress with its artificial sun is not stopping at record temperatures or longer plasma runs. The next phase is focused on turning research into a working system that can produce continuous energy. Scientists are already moving beyond the experimental advanced superconducting tokamak toward more advanced projects designed to test real power generation conditions. One of the key next steps is the development of the China Fusion Engineering Test Reactor, often called CFETR. This reactor is planned to bridge the gap between experimental machines and full commercial fusion plants. It is expected to operate at higher power levels, run for longer periods, and begin testing how fusion energy can be converted into electricity for practical use. Unlike earlier devices, it is being designed with the future power grid in mind. For China, this effort is not only about science, it is also tied to long-term energy strategy. The country has a large and growing demand for electricity, and it is working to reduce reliance on coal and imported fuels. Fusion offers a possible path towards stable and clean energy that can support industrial growth without increasing carbon emissions. China is also positioning itself as a major leader in fusion research. By investing heavily in infrastructure, talent, and long-term planning, it is building a strong presence in a field that many see as one of the most important technological races of this century. Its work is closely linked with international collaboration, but it is also developing its own independent capabilities. This momentum places China among the countries shaping the future of energy. It also puts it in a key position in the spectrum of development. With so many tech wonders, China has earned its place, and it's making vigorous efforts to stay at the head of the game. Fusion research is often compared to the early days of space exploration, where progress required patience, resources, and national commitment. By pushing forward with large-scale projects and consistent experimentation, China is helping drive a global effort that could redefine how energy is produced and shared in the decades ahead. So, thanks for watching. We will see you in the next video. And don't forget to subscribe for more.